Gary Johnson here. Welcome to Speak the Truth. Today is November 7th, 2021. You're about to see a very good show with a strong list of panelists, our regulars. We have Jacques Chevalier. Yes, indeed. We have Jacques with us. Of course, we have the man behind me, Mr. Harold Bell, and some other guy. I don't know who this other guy is, but he made Harold Bell the chosen one. That is the greatest, Muhammad Ali. We also have CJ, Chris Johnson. We've got our district attorney from Selma, Alabama, Michael Jackson. And we have John Hollins from Atlanta. Yes, we have John from Atlanta. And we have Mr. Lawrence Lucas. Always glad to have Mr. Lucas in the house. So without further ado, get ready to watch a great show. And we're also going to sneak in a highlight reel of Maury Wills. You're going to hear Mr. Bell talk about Maury Wills. There are a lot of people who don't even know who Maury Wills is, who he was. So take a look at Maury Wills at the end of this episode. Good afternoon. Welcome to Speak the Truth, November 7th, 2021. My name is Gary Johnson, blackmeninamerica.com, and we've got a jam-packed show like we have every Sunday on Speak the Truth. Let me introduce our co-host, Mr. Christopher C.J. Johnson. Over to you, C.J.
Hey guys, welcome to Speak the Truth. Today we've got plenty of hot topics today. We've got the Virginia's governor's race. We've got plenty of other ongoing crucial topics, but I'm going to pass it over to the Washington, D.C. journalism and community legend, Mr. Harold Bell.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you. Yeah, we got some hot topics, hot button topics that we want to talk about. But the first thing I want to do is take time out and say, wish the Colin Powell family our deepest condolences. They had his homegoing service on Friday. Truly an American hero. I don't care which way you put it. He was an American hero, a guy that many of us, Black, white, Puerto Rican, you name it, looked up to this guy because basically, man, he stood up to be a man at all times. And he's going to be truly missed. He was 83 years old, and they had his homegoing service this past Friday. And like I said, he was an American hero. Also, we lost a dear friend of mine, Harold Burke. Harold was instrumental in helping me put on that debut with the Muhammad Ali and me video at the Miracle Theater, and back in November 2019. Harold was a legend here in Washington, D.C. as an athlete. Guy played everything in high school. He worked at Howard University, I guess, for almost 4 decades in the arts department as a video guy. And he was always very inspirational. In fact, our last speaking engagement at Morgan State University to the School of Communications, Hattie and I went over there, and Harold rode with us over there, and it was we had a great time. This guy just always supported, man. Somebody you didn't have to look for, that was always there inspiring you to be all that you could be. So I'm going to miss Harold Burke, really tremendously. We're at that stage of the game I am, and I guess we're losing a lot of our friends all around us. Hattie and I did go over to Doctor's Hospital to get our booster shot last week. We have been waiting to get the booster shot because they didn't have the Moderna shot, but they had the Pfizer shot. And I told Hattie, I'm not getting my shot until you get yours. I'm trying to get it the same time. And so we had to wait a couple of weeks, and I'm glad we did because we both were able to go out to Doctor's Hospital in Lanham to get those shots. Now I understand those shots are now available to kids from 5 to 11. Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I've been hearing. Yeah.
Yeah. So that is great. Also, the first thing I want to start out talking about, I'm going to talk about this Virginia governor's race between Youngkin and Terry McCullough. And It was a surprise in many ways, but a lot of us saw which way it was going. I mean, we saw the way it was going. Terry McAuliffe he was lost after they picked up and started that momentum on the critical race theory. So how we don't want our kids, our teachers teaching our kids just anything because they didn't want their children learning about Black history. That's what the critical race theory is all about. And I think that's what he lost. He lost his footing, man. So that's why I want to start out today, because I want to hear what you guys got to say about that Virginia race, because, you know, I think on the way out here last week, this program, I said, whichever way the Virginia goes, so America goes. And now, hey, the Republicans are back. Let's start out with Chris, because Chris, I know you have been done a lot of research on this. Tell us how you feel about what happened out there.
You hit it on right on the head. Terry McAuliffe was always a terrible candidate, and this is going to be an indictment on the Democrats nationally. And they lost to a party that ran on nothing but an imaginary issue. They didn't even have any issues. They made up critical race theory, made that the defining issue of this race. When I had to break this down to someone else the other day, just for people who aren't aware, critical race theory is not taught in K through 12 schools. So the debate on whether or not it should be taught is pointless and literally is a waste of time, because no one is trying to teach it in K through 12 schools. There's no movement for it. There's no elected Democrat saying we need to teach it. What you said is correct. They've replaced critical race theory, which is a grad school concept that no one is trying to teach the third graders that wouldn't understand it anyway. Right. And they've replaced that with Black history. Anything that makes white people look bad, they want that scrubbed from history. The party that cries about not erasing our heritage and taking down our Confederate statues, all of a sudden has an issue with history, and they want to cancel regular history. So that's the only issue the Republicans brought, and they won. And how did they win? It's because Terry McAuliffe is a candidate running in 1994. He ran an anti-Trump campaign against a candidate who is not Donald Trump. If you look at the commercials that McAuliffe was running, they were all an indictment on Trump. We're anti-Trump. Donald Trump's not the president anymore. People are not looking for anti-Trump. He's not there. He's not the boogeyman that you can point to anymore. You have to actually improve people's lives. And Terry McAuliffe has already been the governor of Virginia, and he's already been the Democrats are recycling old politicians that have already failed and done nothing. So it's also a greater indictment on what's happening with the infrastructure bill, because every headline with the Democrats in the past few weeks is Democrats taking out something incredibly popular that the American people overwhelmingly want because of pressure from lobbyists, basically. So paid family leave, that out of the bill. Anything that people want, the climate change provisions out of the bill. Lowering prescription drug prices, which is like 90% popular. I don't know any person that doesn't want cheaper prescription drugs. The Democrats have run on that since Obama was in office, still haven't done it. And then they complain on why they couldn't get Black people and young people to go to the polls. You guys have been in power and not doing anything. They have immense power right now with the presidency, the House, and the Senate to actually do something. And every headline we've seen with this big bill is them taking things out of it. That is not, even if you believe in that policy-wise, that's just not smart politics. How about do the basic thing and like do the policies within your power that are, understandably, that will improve people's lives. That's how you win elections. And that's how you don't lose to a Republican Party that literally has nothing to offer. So they had to invent an issue to, as you said, do a dog whistle and fearmonger white people to the polls. That's all this race came down to. And this is going to be a terrible indicator going forward for the Democrats. They're going to get bludgeoned in the 2020 because they don't have any identity. I was explaining this to something else. Everyone in this panel understands what the Republican Party stands for. We might not like it or agree with it, but we know that they're for big business. They're protect white supremacy. They are for certain things that we know, and there's no surprise. But I asked the question, what does the Democratic Party stand for? I haven't heard one person able to answer that question. Like, what do they stand for? I know what they say they stand for, but what do they actually stand for? What do? They don't fight for healthcare. They say they want it. They don't actually do criminal justice reform. They say they want it. So like, the party has no identity. So even if we don't agree with the Republican brand, they have a brand, and that brand is going to get their voters to the polls. They're giving their voters something. The Democrats still haven't learned to actually do something for your voters. You can't get in power, do nothing, and then ask to be put back in power to do more of nothing. You have to try to do something.
Okay, Jacques, come on in, Jacques.
Yes, thank you all. Hello, everyone. I paid close attention to the race too. I used to live in Virginia. I've actually lived in DC, Maryland, and Virginia. I think McAuliffe and the Democratic Party definitely blew that race. They catered to a select minority of people in the state of Virginia, the Democrats, that is, whereas the Republicans, they definitely catered to their base and beyond. And I do believe that the country in 2022, we're going to see a big change in Congress, in the Senate, that is. The other thing is that I paid attention to, I have been very keen on, is Senators Manchin and Sinema, who are derailing the Democratic Party. Biden obviously was not, it seems to be now that he was not a good choice for president. Manchin and Sinema have both been bought out by the big bucks, as CJ alluded to. These guys aren't Republicans, they aren't Democrats, they solely for the money. And it is so obvious with all the money that is poured into those senators' campaigns, how 90%, I think it is, 80%, whatever it is in West Virginia, poor folks. Poor dirt, poor down and out white folks with nothing. And Manchin riding around has a yacht boat, nice home. His son has got a big position with the coal mining company. And so that guy's just looking out for a couple folks in his family, but yet those dumb white folks down there will vote this guy Manchin probably back in, and he's delivering nothing to them. But in the meantime, the entire country is suffering because of Manchin and Sinema. And I always say, until they do something about the term limits, we'll have this conversation every election term. Unless they stop that, and the same thing, you know, in the state of Maryland, where they can just run and run and run again. You got DC, the mayor, she's great, run for a third term, just jumping over that for a minute. And with the crime out of control. So I obviously don't have the answer. Well, other than I think if they did term limits, but it's going to take a real civil war to get that stopped and changed, because and those congressmen and senators I saw, where the vast majority of them, as soon as they leave office, or not just them, but their staff, right away they go into lobbying. They become consultants for big companies or big law firms, and they'll pretend that they're not having direct contact. But if you got the guy in your office that you're working for, and y'all both making 200, 300, 400, 500,000 a year, you know, what's to stop you from whispering to that person, and that person going to that senator or congressman who you used to work for? So it's a long chain of just bad connections that is destroying this country. And I think we're worse for it. And I don't even think we've seen the worst of it yet, because they have all, like you said, McAuliffe was talking about Trump, and Trump wasn't the person in power, you know, and even the candidate, the Republican candidate, didn't even talk about Trump that much, you know, in those old meetings or something he was had went to, and they had to play those tapes, which you could barely hear over and over. So that's my take.
Okay. Hello, Michael. Attorney Michael Jackson down in Selma, Alabama. What's happening, Michael?
I'm gonna say this: the candidate for governor for Virginia, he had a poor message, and the Democrat do. They don't know how to message their message. You can't get in a debate and say parents don't have a say-so on the kids' education. Nobody's gonna agree with that. And then they took that and blew it all up. The Democrat just, it's 500-some thousand jobs just got created. You hardly hear this. The stock market is setting records. Biden never says anything about that. Trump used to brag every time there was a record set with the stock market. Hey.
That's right.
I mean, Biden never says that. Their messages are just all screwed up. And they done took this, instead of the Democrats saying reforming the police department, they saying they done taken this, defund the police, a couple folks, and blew this all up, and that's what the Democrats stand for. And when even blacks want the police around, nobody doesn't want the police around, because people, the criminals are not gonna stop. the Democrats don't know how to make. I would be bragging every day about 500-some thousand jobs being created. That set a record. I'd be bragging on the stock market, and I know somebody might, well, that's the corporate, but that's what folks want to hear. You got to give people positive news. All this stuff, the whole folk has been Democrat fighting with each other. They don't have a message. And the Republicans who won't cooperate on anything hardly are getting away with that because it looked like the Democrat can't get their act together. So it's all about the message, because even if somebody doesn't agree with you, if they know where you stand, they can at least respect you. So anyway.
All right, Lawrence Lucas, come on in. We're talking about the election that went on in Virginia where Youngkin, a guy who's never been in political office in his life, went up against Terry McCullough, who was a former governor. And now it looks like that the Democrats are in trouble from here on in. How you feel about that, Larry?
Well, I think that I think we've been kind of calling this. I know I've had some insight in terms, and we've been talking that Virginia was going to be an example of what the Democrats have not done. You can't run in this day and time with progressive Democrats, conservatives, and all others and not have a message. He decided he was going to run on Trump, and Trump was going to put him in office because he talked about Trump. The opposite happened. He didn't use what some would have said the smarter move would have been, if he was going to follow the Democratic line, he should have followed what was in the infrastructure bill. That's the bill that was passed. The other piece did not, which covers the whole issue dealing around Black farmers. So I think that I had been telling Cory Booker's office and Warnock's office, both senators, that it's going to be a reckoning in 2022. Instead of it being a reckoning in 2022, it was a shipwreck this past week in Virginia. And it almost happened in New Jersey. So what you've got is, you've got to have a message. And if you stay on message and don't get too far away from where your credibility lies, because that's where you can protect yourself. But once you go out on the fringes and just spend all your time on, I would say, Trump, without dealing with the message and what he's going to do when he becomes governor, is where it all got lost. And I think another thing happened, and people don't pay attention to this. I was saying, without the Black vote, the Democrats are going to be in trouble in 22. I think two things happened in Virginia, 2 or 3 things happened. They didn't have the Black vote, they didn't have the Black women vote, and they had bad weather. See, most people take their eyes off the weather. Weather means a lot in urban areas, because then you got senior citizens who can't get to the polls, and people like me who don't like going out in the cold and the rain are not going to go out and vote. So I kind of put myself in that pocket and kind of think more logically than politically. So what happened this past week was a train wreck, which I think Harold, you and Gary and many others knew was going to happen. So I don't think we're surprised.
No, we're not. I know my man John Hollins. We're gonna leave him out there for a while because I'm gonna talk baseball with him. I'm gonna go up to Gary. Gary, kind of, give your opinion what happened and take us to the next segment with Joy Reid. Gary.
Yeah, well, I've been hearing a lot of stuff about the lieutenant governor for Virginia. And this is on the heels of, the win. And most of it's been negative. I try to be, fair. And so I said, let me see what I can find out on this lieutenant governor. So before I do the Joy Reid post, let me just show you what I found out. Now, arguably, I'm gonna put on a share. This is from the website, her own website, about Winsome Sears. But I'm just wondering if we were talking about a Black woman who was, and forget the politics, just a Black woman who became the first and only woman elected to her party, first female veteran, first legal immigrant woman, mother, wife, served in the Marines, was on the vice president of the Virginia Board of Education, received presidential nomination, was at the Census Bureau, co-chair of the African American Committee, Advisory Committee, Women Veterans to the Secretary of Veterans Affairs, got a master's degree. She's a business person, a trained electrician. I mean, we go on and on, led a prison ministry for men, director of a women's homeless shelter for the Salvation Army. Wow. If it was just that alone, what's not to like?
That's right.
I'm wondering about this person.
That's right.
But I've been hearing all this negative stuff. So anyway, I didn't know much about her. So that's what I found out about her. But then we shift to what Mr. Bell was referencing by something with Joy Reid. So let's take a listen.
If I can, over on MSNBC about the Youngkin win and your win. Watch this.
You have to be willing to vocalize that these Republicans are dangerous, that this isn't a party that's just another political party that disagrees with us on tax policy, that at this point, they're dangerous. They're dangerous to our national security because stoking that kind of soft white nationalism eventually leads to the hardcore stuff.
Your reaction to that, Ms. Sears?
I wish Joy Reid would invite me on her show. Let's see if she's woman enough to do that. I'd go in a heartbeat and we have a real discussion without Joy speaking about me behind my back, if you will. She talks about white supremacy. Does she know that I ran against a white supremacist? I mean, Joy, come on, get your facts straight and then come talk to me. I'm waiting for you.
We hope she'll take you up on it. You have a lot to say and a lot of people very inspired by your message last night and your win. Winsome Sears, the new lieutenant governor when you're sworn in of the state of Virginia, Commonwealth of Virginia. Thank you so much for being here today. We look forward to speaking with you in the future. Thank you, ma'am.
So what do you say there, Mr. B?
All right, well, the lady sound like, thank you for that great research that you did on her. Seems like she's a Renaissance woman, man. That this lady is has a lot going for her, but I heard people say she's the clone of Tim Scott out of South Carolina. Doesn't seem that way. Listening to her and looking at your research. So I say, hey, I got to take a wait and see attitude on this and see which way it goes. What about you, Chris?
I've done the research and I can tell you that first of all, there are a few things that are super, super frustrating about this whole situation. One, Joy Reid is also fundamentally dangerous, and the fact that the mainstream media is still doing malpractice on just about every issue is arguably just as dangerous as these stupid Republican candidates running. But going back to Winsome Sears, as soon as I saw a picture of her circulating with an AK-47 or AR-15, I already pretty much knew what I was going for here, that this isn't a policy, this isn't a candidate that is serious about policy. This is another just stunt casting, as you said, a Tim Scott type of situation, because if you look at her actual policy platform, which no one seems to be looking at, everyone's looking at her skin color, which is great. I love the identity politics, a woman, a Black woman, great. But can we look at what these candidates actually stand for and what they're going to represent? Because if you glance at the policy section of her page, it's terrible. It's regular standard Republican trickle-down economics. She takes big money from corporations. She wants to give the police more money and more enforcement, and there's no policy there for Black people. She says she wants to do an advisory panel. Oh, that's great. I'm sure that's going to help Black people. An advisory panel. That seems very helpful. So again, this is just another identity politics okey doke. And I ask anyone, if we all know what the Republican Party stands for, as we said, they have a clear message. We know what they stand for. We might not like it, but we know what they stand for. Do we think the Republican Party and Fox News and all these racist institutions would prop up and promote a candidate that had our best interest or the best interest of poor people or Black people in mind? Would they be putting money behind her? Would they be propping her up? I just raised that question, and then I rest my case.
Okay, Jacques, come on in, Jacques.
Yes, I agree with the synopsis thus far that this is definitely a candidate that has been propped up. I do appreciate, though, her credentials. In all honesty, I have to say her credentials do make me stop and pause. And if I was in Virginia, I'm not sure if you get to vote separately for the lieutenant governor automatically they're on the same ticket. That I'm not sure of. But had she been on the ticket by herself, I would be honest, I probably would have voted for her.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Okay.
my
Thanks, Jacques. Come on in, Michael. What you think, Michael?
Well, she certainly has a lot of credentials, and I like the fact that she did something with the homeless. But again, it goes back to messaging. She's been very smart on how she got a message out, being able to appeal to different folks, even some folks on this call here would have voted for her. It's all about messaging. And that's what that Virginia governor candidate didn't understand. This lady understood it as a Republican. And some folks can have, look what happened to the Buffalo mayor. He ran as a write-in candidate, won, and he got a lot of Republican votes too as a write-in candidate. But the interesting thing, he's a part of Al Sharpton's group, whatever they call themselves, which for some, I know some of y'all probably say that doesn't mean anything, but I'm just saying, it's all about the way you present yourself, the message. Most of those folks, those Republicans voting for him, didn't even know probably he was a part of Al Sharpton's network, whatever he called that network. So when you're an elected official or you're running for office, you have to have a message that appeals to folks. This lady message, her message appealed to the Republicans, but her resume appealed to a lot of Democrats. So that's the way it played out.
Mm-hmm. All right, Lawrence.
Well, I'm going to have to almost pass. I would say that I agree that the message and I think the history that Gary went back and pulled out was very impressive. I'd have to agree with, if sight unseen, and if I were just looking at her credentials, being a Black male, I would have probably voted for her. The key is, I don't know, and we have not been following her. We really will not know where she sits and what she'll do until she gets in the job. Mm-hmm. I would think that, I would say that her credentials being what they are, who knows, maybe we will get a surprise. The problem with her position is that she's the deputy and not the man. And I think that the message in the leadership, let's see if she has the courage to step aside from those things that are wrong. So I would say that I give her a pass, and let's see what she produces. And you got to remember, we're in a running battle with racist Democrats. So you can't look at just a label and a label alone to depict what a person is.
Mhm. Okay, Gary?
Well, I mean, I was the one who pulled up her credentials, and yeah, she, in isolation, she does look very well credentialed, appeals to people. But like Mr. Lucas said, when you get in that boardroom, it's all about your power and your position. Now, if people don't, I had someone tell me, I interviewed the other day, Kwame Salter, who's a retired executive at Kraft Foods. Somebody asked him about, what if you can't get a seat at the table in the boardroom? And Kwame said, well, then you bring a damn folding chair and you tell people to move over. So he's, now, whether or not she's gonna be that kind of person, I don't know. Because just like I made a pretty heavy argument, CJ has made an equally convincing argument about what her actual record is.
Right.
And so that's going to be the unsolved mystery. You know, what she's going to be like.
I'm gonna go back to Michael on this one. Michael, right there in your area, you know, it looks like 1821, man. They get ready to have a jury trial of the murder of Omar Aubrey, and they got 11 whites and 1 black. And this is 2021, man. They got 11 whites and 1 black. What's happening down there, Michael?
Well, I did grow up in Georgia, so I can speak to the Georgia situation, and it's right by Alabama where I am now. But what
Speak
I
the
did,
truth.
John. I'm gonna bring you in, John. Go ahead, Michael.
yeah, what I didn't understand though is the judge said that was wrong.
That's right.
So he could have put some jurors back on that had gotten struck. So why didn't he? I haven't been able to figure that one out, because judges here in my circuit, you might not always agree with them, but they'll put a juror back on if they didn't feel like it was a race neutral reason why they got struck. And I don't understand why the judge didn't do this. Do that in that situation, because my understanding.
Mike, he did do that. He just did it the opposite.
What you mean? Opposite.
He didn't bring the 8 blacks back, but he kept the 8 whites on because he said that it had no racial. There was nothing racial about the decision, and so that's why he stayed with the people he was with. He was the judge and could make that decision. And at the end of the day,
Get your point on that, but look, y'all hear when I was on that civil rights case, we had a situation where I knew, even though it was in that county, it was a majority black population, I knew the judge that we had was gonna make sure that it was about half and half regard. He was gonna put whites back on the jury to make sure that that white defendant had his peers on there. And so, given that, I don't understand why, if the judge is saying, look, this ain't right, this is not fair, and that kind of thing, why he didn't try to add black that were struck because he felt like there wasn't race neutral reasons, so they were struck. Why he just didn't put them back on? And then they never would have gotten to the whites that weren't struck or were struck for race neutral reason. He put them back on. I just don't understand what the judge did there. Maybe somebody can.
I'm gonna bring John on in. Come on in, John. John.
hey guys, I've been traveling, so I'm on the cell phone, so it might go in and out. That's why I'm not on. But you know, and listening to you guys, we all know why. The thing is, how can we correct a system that in one sense is one of the best systems in place, but the other sense, when human nature gets involved, the system gets misconstrued. If they would say, because of the county breakdown, you have to keep the jury, at least if they are there, and within those numbers. 30% of the population of that county is African American. That should be a mandate that if the county breakdown is a certain number, that it has to be, but it's not. It's up to the judge. After they go back and forth, he makes the final decision. And by looking at him, he don't look like me. And so what I'm saying is he has internal empathy for those three guys that are sitting out there. And he may not admit to it, he may not say it, but he's trying to give them every opportunity to be able to get what they consider a fair trial. That's what he's saying in his mind. But what he's really doing is he's trying to make sure that he gives them every opportunity to get off, is what he's doing.
Oh, John, stay right there. Don't go nowhere. I'm going to keep John and I'm going to keep Michael there. One of the things I want to say, you know, the Atlanta Braves won the World Series. First time they've been back in 26 years, and we got two guys from the Atlanta, Georgia area on the call with us. And I want, Gary, will you run that piece on Arby's family celebrating the win on the island? Will you run that so we can see them?
Here we go.
So I'll narrate for you.
That's mom. I'm hanging out. That's mom. That's mom.
Here come mom. Here come mom.
Good gracious.
That's his mama right there.
Okay, John, run that by us what we just saw, John.
Okay, they jumping up and down like Donovan Mitchell family jump up and down when he signed that $116 million contract. They know more money. No, everybody was excited. His uncle videoed that for me and sent it. I sent a group of kids to Curacao 2 years ago, and Ozzy Albies came out, met him, took him around the island. His mom showed him where he worked out and tried to get better, gave him an understanding of how hard you got to work to get to that level. It was on a whole nother level. I do this every year. We're headed to Aruba this year. It's a cultural trip, humanitarian. We give out equipment to the kids on the island that don't have the money to pay for cleats, don't have the money to buy gloves. They borrow gloves. Like my dad used to talk about in the old days, you leave your glove out on the field because the other team had to come out there and use the glove. They didn't have gloves down in the country. But now, you know, everybody's got equipment, and these kids are like we were. They don't have stuff. So they borrow, they work on their hands. They hand the glove over to the next guy. He works on it. They don't have equipment. So we do this. So I want my kids to understand, when I say my kids, the Black kids in my community, and it stemmed from, I have 17 kids that have played in my program that are in the pros. Not one have given a dime back to my program. And it's a nonprofit. And people say, man, I'm sorry to hear that. And I had to think about it. Why is that? The reason why it is, I believe, is because we as Black men, as Black adults, leaders, have not taught our kids, not everybody, nobody on this phone probably, but have not taught our kids the importance of giving back. And so once they make it, they spend their whole life with their hand out, being the oppressed culture of our community. And then once they make it, they clutch their purse because they think everybody's trying to get in it. So I said, if I can teach these kids what a difference they make in people's lives by giving back, and how God blesses you 10 times over when you give, then it'll be from their heart. And so we've been doing this, and a couple of my kids have already started their own nonprofit, and they have a coat drive where they do coat drives in the wintertime and give to the homeless. They all volunteer with me when we feed the hungry during Thanksgiving. So these are things that you have to teach people, because if it's not taught to them, and you know, in our inner city programs, we don't teach the importance of giving back because we're always trying to get. And so that was, you know, them being excited, but more importantly, it was a cultural trip, and I got a chance to meet them. My kids did, and I try to do it every year. So it was I was excited too.
Yeah, you invited me to go on that trip, but I couldn't make it. I appreciate it. I'm sorry that I missed it, but you know I don't like to fly. Come on in.
Hey, well, no. You know what, Harold? I got a seat for you for Aruba.
Okay.
I got a seat for you for Aruba. But will you fly?
Okay, baby. Okay.
Will you fly?
Yeah, I fly. I think I take it.
I'll get you down here.
Come on in. Michael.
Right.
Michael, come on in. I know you're a Georgia boy. Tell us about how you feel about the Atlanta Braves winning the World Series and honoring the great Hank Aaron at that. Come on in, Michael.
I think he's free.
Were you talking to me or somebody else?
I'm talking to you. I'm talking to you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Look. That's when I reached out to John after all these years because the program he's doing for these kids with baseball. As y'all know, a lot of black kids are not playing baseball like they used to, and these programs are starting to die across the country because they're not a focus on it. And like John just said, people not giving back, helping out in these programs. And, you know, I'm all excited about the Braves winning because back when I was growing up, if you made all A, they gave you free tickets. And that's how we used to go to the baseball game, making all A's. And my mom would take us there and I watch Hank Aaron try to break the record and hit home runs. So, man, I used to love that old ballpark the Braves played in as opposed to that new ballpark because I can't stand heights. And I went to a game with the black prosecutors in Atlanta when they had their conference. And, man, I went to that game and I had to turn my back watching the game, being high up the way they got that baseball park set up. I couldn't even hardly enjoy the game, but I had turn my back. By the time I got used to it, it was time to go because we had to walk 3 miles to catch the bus, but that's a whole nother story. But that was like 3 years ago. But I have to applaud John for doing this program, regardless of who don't, whether they give back or not, for him to take the time out to do the program because, man, when we were growing up, we played at Gresham Park. And I remember playing at Glen Lake Park in Decatur. And then you played baseball and you got interested in it. But now kids don't want to play baseball because there's not that many programs out there.
Mm-hmm. You know, while we here also, I'm going to bring all you guys in on this. The Major Leagues are having their Hall of Fame announcement in December. And one of the people that are on who is being considered is a guy right out here out of the Washington area who revolutionized the game. He revolutionized the game, and they refused to let him into the Hall of Fame. So now he's on some kind of a new committee. It's called the Golden Days Era Ballot. That's what he's on there with. Dick Allen's not on there. Kurt Flood's not on there. In fact, Pete Rose, as far as I'm concerned, belongs in the Hall of Fame. But the guy that I'm talking about, his name is Maury Wills, Sonny Wills, revolutionized the game of baseball. He put the home run, made it non-existent when he was running the base path. But he set all kinds of records. He was most valuable player in the league. But you know what his problem is? They did not like him dating them white girls. He was dating Doris Day. And he had an ego, you know. He didn't care nothing about what they thought. And then those same newspaper men who have taken on, you know, this thing to keep him out of the Hall of Fame are the ones who've been keeping him out of the Hall of Fame. And Maury and I had our differences. But man, let me tell you something. This brother revolutionized the baseball game and deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. So I'm going to go back and probably try to bring, I know Chris is probably too young to know anything about Maury Wills, but he knows how we got baseball writers who are voting for people to go in the Hall of Fame, but their identity is hidden. You don't know who they are. They don't give you no names. So what kind of system is that? That's the kind of system where they can blackball you and you don't have any idea who's doing the blackballing. So John, come on in and say a word about that and let me go back to everybody else. John, you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here, Harold. I mean, you hit the hammer on the nail. And that is, as long as they have a system where people can hide behind sheets, hide behind pens, and not be able to recognize who they're voting for, and be able to they should have written a full-page explanation of why they're voting for who and why. Instead, they get to check. I mean, think about it. You get a guy like Hank Aaron that didn't get 100% of the votes to go into the Hall of Fame.
Unbelievable.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's unbelievable. Who voted against him? You know, you want to know who that is. And so as long as the system is the way it is, I mean, it goes down to the whole politics that you talked about earlier. And the last thing me personally would like to see is a civil rights in our community, in our country. But we have a group of people that are trying to hold on to the way things used to be. And they're willing to do it and fight for their lives to do it. It's not about Republicans. It's not about Democrats. It's about making sure that we keep people of color oppressed. Because in a capitalist society, you got to have a poor. And where you think the Mexicans who come into this country are the poor, they're not. Because they entrepreneur themselves to build things. And they have skills. And they build and they build and they build, and all of a sudden they're independent contractors. They're making money. So it's still Black people who are still depending on someone else to make a way for them, and they're not getting that way. And we still are in systems that we expect to be treated fairly. I'll say this and I'll stop. My father taught me something a long time ago. He said, son, if you had a house and a white carpenter came by and you needed some work done, and you asked him to do that work, and he did the work to perfection, and he had extra wood, and so he built you a cabin in the back also, and said it's no charge, but he was homeless. Could he stay in the cabin until he found him a place? You'd probably say, yeah, wouldn't you? I said, yeah, probably so. He said, then he started doing other stuff around your house. I want to ask you something. Would you ever let him sleep in your bed? Nope, no matter what he does. But we as people, sometimes because we're Americans, feel like they're going to let us sleep in their bed. They're never going to let us sleep in their bed. We got to have our own house. And so we have to continue to start building our community, giving back, training our kids to understand. That's why I have kids going to Jackson State, Mississippi Valley, Grambling. You know, I was at Georgia State today. That's my alumni. We got 4 kids. I got 2 kids over there right now. But I'm trying to get these kids and the parents to understand scouts don't follow teams. They follow players. You can get drafted at Jackson State if you're good. If you keep working hard, you don't have to go to these major programs. Yes, their amenities are better. Yes, their facilities are better, but you can still do it. You can make a difference. We have to keep instilling in our kids that they can make a difference. I love when I hear CJ speak, the level of competence that he has on the community, on what's going on in society, and the strength and voice that he has, that voice one day is going to be heard, not just by us, but by the rest of the world. Because if we don't continue to promote our young Black kids and young Black men to do these things, we'll keep trying to be in their corporate office and think they're going to one day make us CEO. They're not unless it's benefiting them in some way, because they got 10 companies, so they'll let you run one. You know, that's just my opinion. That's my thoughts.
Okay, we're down to the 1 minute mark. Now I'm gonna go up to Jacques. Jacques, come on in. Well, how do you feel about that? We're down to one minute mark.
I think again, it's another one of those situations where, you know, we forget where we come from. We forget to care about others. I realize that none of us can save the world, but I always say, and I will continue to say this, that I think a lot of our entertainers, our leaders, they're being paid way too much. And so that's why we now have this 1% class that really didn't exist 50 years ago. So in the last 30, 40 years, we've seen this 1% class, and they're of all colors, and they have no connection to any kind of a party or label. That doesn't affect them. Their only concern is money. And why Do they think they can make all this money? What in the hell are you going to do with it? As soon as I got married, I right away, I put, everything in my wife's name along with mine because I knew I couldn't take it with me. So that's my take.
Okay, let's go to Lawrence. Lawrence, take 1 minute. Come on in off mute.
My thinking is that we depend too much on people that have the title leader. I think things are going to change for Black people when Black people understand that we need to work together, number one. But I don't think it's going to take the typical Black leader, because the Black leader, as we know them to be, do not work in our best interests. We're going to have to turn to young people like CJ and many, many others to depend on bringing our voices to the forefront. And I think the little time that, Harold, that we have left and that I have left, I think the concentration on that is a better way to go and pull in the young people and us needing to work together and leaving out the NACP, the Sharptons, and urban leagues, because they don't really care or think about us.
That's good. Okay, Michael. Come on, Michael.
I agree with what he just said about the group of leaders. But I do feel better about the future when you hear people like CJ. I don't agree with half the stuff he said, but he clearly well read, and that's the key. That's the key to our future young folk. They gotta read, and CJ makes me have hope for the future, because I tell you, some of the young folks you run into now, you just say, "Oh Lord, this is our future generation," and they don't want to read a newspaper. They don't read a book. They don't read anything. And so it brings me hope when I run into somebody like CJ, who very well read. But again, I know we don't have to agree on hardly anything, but he does bring me hope and faith that there are young folks out there who can take over for us in the next generation, keep this country moving forward in the right direction.
Okay. Okay, Hope, Mr. Hope, CJ, come on in.
I appreciate all the kind words, and definitely, and I like to say I have deep respect for everyone on this panel, but it still does remain frustrating when we do stay on the topic of Black leadership, because kind of what the example was before when we were talking about Winsome Sears. What is so frustrating is we're still falling for the okey doke that over and over again, where the Black face is not always your friend, as you say, Mr. Bell, and they'll put these Black candidates out, and they'll see credentials. Oh, they went to this school, or they have this military background, but they don't look at the policies or what they actually stand for. Not even just their record, but what they say they're going to do and what they say that they stand for, what they would actually implement that would actually affect your life. So, like, as much as I would love a Black leader to be a Black face, I don't care if they are green, midget truck driver. If they have policies like giving people health care or giving people a living wage, I will consider that person. And I think we need to think more along those lines. There are a bunch of charlatans that are pretending to be Black leaders that are just do the bidding of the establishment, whose job is to just disarm Black movements. And we need to get around that. And if we keep falling for that, it's just deeply frustrating. And then I appreciate people saying that I'm well read and I'm engaged in this stuff, but a lot of reason that people in my generation aren't is because they're working 3 jobs that pay not enough to live, and they're being crushed by these economic conditions, which is a strategy to keep people from being able to be politically involved. There aren't more people mobilized because they're too busy trying to survive, and that's taking up all their time and energy just to survive in this capitalist hellscape right now, where the American dream has died, where we used to be able to work 1 job or 2 jobs and be able to afford a life and a family and a home, where that's dead now, where it's in the wages don't reflect that anymore. And until we get tangible policies that actually improve people's lives, I think that's why people are so checked out, especially young people are not going to be engaged. We're not going to be able to get people to the polls with something that is not tangible policy-wise, not with flowery words and great speeches. That's great, awesome, but what are you going to do for me? And if the politicians can't answer that, they're going to have a reckoning.
Okay, Gary, we're gonna go over a little bit, because I want to run something else by you guys.
Okay, let me just quickly summarize. I think based on what we said, I think everybody needs to understand, at least from my point of view, every system has a need to replicate itself. And that's what systems do. And when you look at these systems, there are things that I call differential consequences. So you have someone Black, someone white, someone rich, someone poor. They are not treated the same. A perfect example, and maybe this is going to be for another topic, Aaron Rodgers, Kyrie Irving. There's a big difference there. Aaron Rodgers thought he was the smartest person in the room with his arrogance. He's going to use the term, oh, I was immunized, you know, and he was allowed to skate with that, you know, and he was allowed to do a lot of things. You know what? I'm just saying, maybe this is just the inner city in me. That dude, that brother that backs him up, I hope he lights it up and Aaron never gets his job back and Aaron loses every damn endorsement because he lied. And there are people who don't want to say he lied. I said he lied. That's how it looks to me. But there are differential consequences in how he was treated and how Kyrie was treated. And that's, I'll just leave it like that.
Was treated. Gary, how Cam Newton was treated.
Yes.
Cam is out of the league because he didn't get his shots. But this guy who lies about taking the shots, and they just go give him a slap on the wrist. Oh, we're gonna give you 10 days off or 30 days off. Man, that's a bunch of bull.
And the team knew about it.
Yeah, they knew about it. I'm gonna tell you something else about the NFL, man, too, that blows my mind. All you guys read about it. This brother riding down the street 156 miles an hour, kills a lady and her dog, and they give him $150,000 bail. They should have locked him up for murder. And for one of his teammates to come on, I think his name was Derek Carr, talking about, well, Ruggs just needs a little love right now. He needs to be in jail. He needs to be in a cell block where they're all skinheads and Ku Klux Klan members. That's what they need. He needs to be in jail, man. He driving 156 miles an hour. Are you kidding me? With one of these cars? Worse than a gun, man. So I did not like that. Now, another thing I wanted to say too was that, you know, here we are, the Jackie Robinson Museum, still not built. 5 years ago, I asked Michael Wilbon on ESPN, I said, Michael, will you check and see why they're having so many problems putting up the Jackie Robinson Museum? Baseball got plenty of money. Okay, Harold, I'm gonna check with Bug Selig, man, I'm gonna get back to you. 5 years ago, he ain't got back to me yet. And here's Jackie Robinson. This man died at a young age, died before he was 60 because of the stress that he went through. And we got all these black ball players, all these media people, James Brown, Michael Wilbon, you name it. Don't say, they don't open their mouths and say a thing. You know, I'm gonna look into it, but never get back to you. Another thing I want to say is that the NFL, while I'm on the NFL, they don't want to reveal these emails because it's going to show you that birds of a feather flock together. All these races across, we don't have not one black owner in the NFL, not one black owner in Major League Baseball. It's a racist society, man, and we cannot get around it. Other thing I want to go out here with you guys, I want all you guys to say something about it, is now being said, we know, they said, you know, one of the dangerous people in our society is a white woman because, you know, they made her a minority, whatever, she sleeps with the man every night. So don't talk about she know the minority. But it's also being said that the most dangerous woman in our society, in our community, is a black woman. I want you guys to take on that. I want to go up first. I want to go to John. John, what do you think about that? A black woman being one of the most dangerous people in our society. You got a black woman in Atlanta, Georgia, as mayor. We got a black woman here as the county executive of PG County. Got a black woman in Washington, D.C., Bowser. We got a black woman in Chicago. But hell, we ain't going no place. Come on in, John.
I don't know. I don't know if I agree with her being the most dangerous person in our society. But you know, something I forgot the brother's name. It doesn't come to me. Omar, Dr. Omar.
Oh yeah, I know you're talking about. Yeah, Omar. Yeah,
he made a statement that's supposedly fact. I didn't research it to know if it's fact or not. But black people are the only culture in our society that the woman is the breadwinner. Wow. The woman is the breadwinner, and in our society, it's still capitalism, whether it's racist or not. And the man who has the gold makes the rules. And so our rules are being made in our household by women. Now that didn't mean there's something wrong with that, because the black woman has always been a strong force in our house.
She's always been a hero.
But to put her in our society above us is something that they do on purpose. It's not something by accident, it's by design. Because when they put a black woman in position, okay, we have a minority and a woman. When they put a woman, like you say, we have a minority. So what it does is we have to, what little limited resources we do have, we have to continue to pull together to help each other build ourselves up. Because at the end of the day, this society is not Republican, it's not Democratic, it's money. It's about money. And unfortunately, a lot of our brothers who get to that level of financial, at that super level, they detach themselves away from people like us because their mindset is, I made it, you can make it. And I made it without your help, so you're gonna make it without my help. That's the kind of feel I get from these brothers. That's what I get. And I don't ask them for anything. You know, the Braves asked me, what do you need? And I said, well, I really don't need anything. I need your support. But every time I give them an idea, they take it and run with it. They take it and run with it and then take credit for it. We won the World Series. Okay. My name is nowhere on there. Majority of those players are my guys. The league that they pulled the kids out was my league. But here's the thing. You know, when you think about our great leaders that have walked the face of this earth, and in my mind, the greatest leader in Jesus Christ, they never asked for accolades. All they tried to do was help somebody. So I will continue to do that as you and I talk, Harold, all the time, how you've been a wisdom and a help to me. Hopefully I've helped you. We continue to help each other. This podcast may not have a lot of people on it, but I feel that somehow there's some people on this podcast that's going to change this society. And we got to keep it going. I'm glad that you're doing it. That's why I got home, grabbed the phone, because I couldn't get home in time to at least be a part of it, because I'm going to support you in every way I possibly can. We have to keep supporting each other.
Thank you, John. All right, Luke, come on in, Luke. Take a minute, Luke.
I'm a bit surprised that I heard that. That's an interesting subject. I really don't know what it means. It's a code word. And if white people are sending that message, then there's something behind that I'm going to have to give a little more thought to. Okay. The one thing I see when white people raise up black women, it seems to be a purpose in mind. And when you raise up black women and leave black men behind, that is part of that slave mentality that they grew up with and that we grew up with, and it has not gone away in society. Mm-hmm. That's what I have to offer to that. But it's putting down, I think, black men in order to give white women and white men the power over us.
Okay. Come on, Jacques.
Being married to a black woman, I certainly understand black women. I do strongly believe that the election, the power that Black women have come into in the past 15, 20 years has certainly diluted the strength and the family unit of Black families and Black men in particular. Over and over again, we see that some of these Black women are being propped up, even right now in Washington, D.C., which is no longer majority Black. There's not one white candidate who stands a good chance of winning. The power structure throwing all their money behind Angela also Brooks out here in PG County, all their money behind Muriel Bowser in D.C., even though it's the city is no longer majority Black. And so we definitely have a problem with that. And I for a while, I thought that it would get better because, we've had so much corruption, and we may have had a little bit less corruption than when we had some of the their male counterparts in office in both jurisdictions and probably all jurisdictions across the country. So that's the one. But then again, that doesn't hold true down in Baltimore. You've had all these women mayors down there and council members. So maybe that's obviously, I take that back. I withdraw that statement. That's really not a good argument. The corruption is still there. Unfortunately, when we get in power, we want to still rob from our people. And that cycle again, that 1%. So she, along with a lot of our other Black women, have fallen into the 1% category where they get invited to the parties with the caviar, the butlers, and chauffeured rides and all. So it's a whole nother world for them, and our power as Black men is on the decrease.
Okay, Michael, you want to come in with something on that?
Yeah, I think the problem is, we got mothers and grandmothers raising these Black boys, and it's kind of demasculating the Black male. A lot of Black guys that growing up, they really need a Black male figure in their life. Women do the best they can, but a guy needs a father figure to teach them how to be a man, and that we're having that problem now. And whites tend to be more comfortable with a weak guy. White guys, they're more comfortable with a weak guy. It's a fact. If you're a Black male with a strong personality, that makes some folk nervous.
You think so, Mr. Bell? You think so, Mr. Bell?
No doubt about it. Go ahead, Michael. Go ahead.
I don't care if you have a Harvard degree. If you're a strong Black male, I'll just tell you, it makes the white male nervous. And so they tend to be more comfortable around Black females or a male who's been demasculated or whatever the term is, because they just can't count a strong Black male talking to them. Even if you're not even trying to make a threatening comment or anything, just a normal conversation, but it just makes them nervous because, well, let me say this, I think that's the reason why society has now tended to try to prop up the Black female, because they know they can't get away with not talking to Blacks in general or putting them in certain positions. But if they gotta put a Black in a position, a lot of times they rather put a Black woman now. That wasn't the case way back in the day, but right now that's what's going on. And unfortunately, it can cause friction between the Black male and the Black female.
Right.
But a Black man need to help raise Black boys. And I know John, I know CJ Ford, I know you, Harold, and all of us are taking a strong role. I try to too with our boys to to help them develop to be men. And that's what we need, but that's what's going on. They're just afraid of strong Black men.
Mm-hmm. Okay, CJ, come on in, CJ.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a lot on the original code because I don't know what the context or says who are the Black women are the most dangerous to who. I think that's a big question that needs to answering, because that'll change that answer drastically. I mean, you can be a Black woman and we, again, going back to Winsome Sears or Candace Owens, you could be elevated in, top white supremacist circles as a Black woman if you have the right ideology. It just depends on what you're trying to say. It's going to be a lot harder if you're trying to fight. It's more of a class issue than a race issue in this country. So, as we said, I think that was pointed back to that Mr. Jackson pointed to before, the Buffalo race. There's a black woman who won the Democratic primary up there, and her opponent who lost did a mass write-in campaign fueled by corporate money and actual Republican votes, then to come back and beat her. So I don't think it's a black woman. They run black candidates against other black candidates and try to play this identity game. So I think it is what was stated before. It's more to sow division more than anything. I mean, black women are incredibly powerful and fierce, and that's why they're feared when they actually are fighters for the people.
Mm-hmm. Well, as we get out here, I'll turn it over to Gary. But I just want to say, man, that I was raised by black women. You know, my heroes could not throw a football 60 yards in the air, shoot a jump shot, or hit a baseball out of the stadium. My grandmother and my mother were superstars of the game called life, man. And my no good dad, he was like say he was a rolling stone. But my grandmother and my mother took over, man, and helped raise the 4 boys that turned out to be all right, man. And I want to say one thing that somebody else had hit on, that for some reason, man, I think John did, that these guys go out and make all this money. I had 32 millionaires that came through Kids in Trouble and Inside Sports. And 1 out of the 32 ever came back and did anything brought a toy or anything. Something is wrong with us mentally, man. And the guess who was? It was a woman that came back. John Thompson's wife came back and made a $40,000 donation to Kids in Trouble and a $10,000 donation to me and Hattie. After John Thompson had to give up $6 million, so $12 million in divorce. So yeah, it's something wrong with us, man. It's so great to see Donovan Mitchell sign that extension and give $12 million right out of the box to his middle school. Black guys do not do that, man. Something is wrong with us, man. So I don't want to say that black women are one of the most dangerous people in our community, but yeah, something is wrong, and that we should take a further look into who are these black women that are leading us. Where did they come from? Check out their background. That way you'll be able to tell exactly why they're going off in the different directions that they're going off in. Gary, take us out of here, man. We're gonna run out of time.
I'm gonna tell you, when you go back and you look at this show and you watch and listen to the stuff that's come out of this show, this might be one of the most important shows that we've done. We've done some really good shows. There's a lot of stuff that came out of this in terms of how we need to think and be really strategic about these issues. I'm glad that we had this show. And Mr. Bell, I'm gonna yield my time so you can yield us out with your phrases that keep us straight.
Yeah, man, as I always say, man, every black face you see is not your brother, and every white face is not your enemy. And like I said, man, you cannot soar with eagles if you're gonna hang out with chickens. I don't hang out with no chickens. Check my background. I ain't never hung out with no chickens. But anyway, thank you guys. This was a great show, man. Great information. John Hollins and Michael Jackson, thanks for being a part of this. And Jacques, man, you guys, it's an education. You've been very enlightening. Until next time, I'm Harold Bell, and you can color me gone.
Be safe, everybody.
Average of 281, 1,067 runs scored, 2,134 hits, and 586 stolen bases. His career total in steals ranks 20th all-time and 16th among modern-era players. Wills remained in the game after his playing days as a broadcaster and later managed the Seattle Mariners in 1980 and 1981, becoming just the 3rd African-American to hold a big league managerial job. Wills changed the game of baseball with his speed, setting up other players to follow in his footsteps in the future. Lou Brock and Rickey Henderson are 2 primary examples, but there are many others known for their speed. In 2019, the Dodgers announced it would induct Dodger greats into the Legends of Dodger Baseball in recognition of their impact on the franchise, both on and off the field. Inductees will receive a plaque honoring their Dodger achievements, which also will be on permanent display at Dodger Stadium. Last season, the Dodgers inducted Don Newcomb, Steve Garvey, and Fernando Valenzuela. They also announced that there would be a fourth member to join them. Any guesses? That's right. Good old Maury Wills. Maury Wills lives on to this day. He is currently 87 years old and resides in Washington, D.C. Thank you guys for watching this video. If you did enjoy, please leave a like and consider subscribing. I appreciate you guys watching this video, and we'll see you guys for the next one. Later.
And that is just a snippet of the greatness of Maury Wills.
Hi, I'm Harold Bell. My wife Hattie and I founded the nonprofit organization in 1968, shortly after the riots that almost destroyed my hometown, Washington, D.C. The program caters to the needs of at-risk children as it relates to social services such as education, law enforcement, drug abuse, gang-related violence, and other antisocial behaviors.